The record should reflect that Mr. Holmes is present with his attorneys and the prosecutors are present. My en banc meeting ran a little late, so I'm sorry that we're getting started a little late. Are the parties ready for the jury?
I have a brief matter, Your Honor.
Okay.
I want to recall Sergeant Gerdeman for a very limited, brief purpose.
Any objection?
No.
Okay. All right, let's bring the jury in. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury has joined us again. Welcome back, folks. I hope you had a good lunch. My meeting ran a little late, so that's why we're getting started a little late. At the end of the morning session, Sergeant Gerdeman had finished testifying. The prosecution has asked to recall him, and I have given them permission to do that without objection. So, sir, I remind you that you're still under oath. Mr. Orman, you may proceed.
Thank you. Sergeant, do you recall testifying previously that someone had told you that the deadbolt had been activated on that door?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, after you used your shot, were you able to tell whether, in fact, was that in fact the case?
That it was locked?
Yes.
It was not locked.
And how do you know?
The actual bolt mechanism was actually in the door itself, and that the door jamb, there was no damage done to it when we fired the shot.
So unlocked.
Yes, it was unlocked.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Any cross-examination, Ms. Spengler?
No.
All right, and there did not appear to be any questions from the jury. So may this witness now really be released from his subpoena.
Yes, Your Honor. I'm sorry for doing that.
Any objection? No objection. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
Overton.
Good afternoon. May I have you raise your right hand so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Can you hand me those exhibits? Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first and last names?
Casey Overton, C-A-S-E-Y, O-V-E-R-T-O-N.
Mr. Orman, you may proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Overton, what do you do for a living?
I'm a police officer for the Adams County Sheriff's Office.
What is your duty assignment?
I'm a bomb technician.
Is that your full-time job?
Oh, that's just my I'm a detective.
I want to ask you about the response to the defendant's apartment at 1690 Paris Street, number 10, on July 20th and then into July 21st, 2012. Were you involved in that?
Yes, sir.
And we're going to get to some specific things, but in general, could you describe what your role was?
I'm a support staff, there as a bomb technician.
All right, I want to ask you to talk about 6:23 a.m. on July 20th. Were you there at that scene?
Yes, sir.
And at that time, did you actually go into the building?
Yes, sir.
Why were you going into the building?
On the robot, it appeared that there was a tripwire that the robot possibly was hung up on. I was sent in to take a look at that, see if I can mitigate that.
Did you
situation.
wear anything
Did
to
you
protect
wear
yourself when you
anything
did that?
To protect yourself when you did that.
Yes, sir.
What was that?
It was the SRS-5. It's a search suit for a bomb.
How much does that weigh?
The search suit's probably about 60 to 70 pounds.
Is it like when you see a bomb guy on TV, what they're wearing?
Yes.
How long did it take you then to get up to the defendant's apartment?
About 3 to 4 minutes.
While you were there, tell me about this bomb suit. Are you wearing a helmet?
Yes, sir.
And there's like a face mask?
Yes, sir.
How far does that come down? I mean, does it like cover your neck and stuff too?
Yeah, the jacket comes up, and then the face shield comes down. They kind of meet together.
And you can also move the microphone closer to you.
Good.
So move the microphone so that it's right in front of your mouth, please.
Why don't you say that again so she can take that down?
The search suit jacket comes up, and the face shield comes down. They kind of meet together.
Now, it's not like airtight like a spacesuit, is it?
No, sir.
So while you were up there, did you go to the defendant's doorway?
Yes, sir.
Did you smell anything unusual while you're up there?
Yes, sir.
What was that?
Gasoline.
How strong would you say that smell was?
It was a strong smell. Like I said, I can smell it through. It was going through the suit and into the mask.
Were you able then to see inside the apartment to see if the bomb robot was in fact caught up on that fishing line?
Yes, sir.
Was it?
No, sir.
All right, what else did you do up there at that point, if anything?
I just looked in the apartment, saw that the robot was not hooked up on the fishing line, and then I left.
All right, I want to go to the next day then, the 21st. Did you go back?
Yes, sir.
And what was your role on that day?
I was sent in later in the day to do some x-rays
And where were you going to x-ray?
inside the apartment.
So was this before or after any of the render safe procedures had been carried out?
It was after.
Okay, so the tripwire device had been taken out
Yes, sir.
and had the thing on top of the refrigerator been blown up?
Yes, sir.
So were you still wearing any protection?
Yes, sir.
What were you wearing?
I was wearing a flak jacket and a helmet with a face mask.
Now, that's not as much as the whole bomb suit, is it?
Correct.
So why not wear a bomb suit?
At this point, we're comfortable with the actions that we've already taken on, but there was still risk there, so I didn't want to go in just with nothing. Also, if there was any other type of booby traps, this allowed me to maneuver a little better. It's not as bulky as a bomb suit.
Let me ask you, are you a little nervous today?
Yes, sir.
You don't need to be nervous. It's just us people here, okay? So tell me where you went then, and did you take any special equipment with you?
Yes, I had panels for the x-ray and then the x-ray source.
Did you x-ray anything?
Yes, sir.
All right, what rooms did you go into x-ray stuff?
The living room and the bedroom.
All right, let's start with the bedroom. What'd you x-ray there?
2 ammo cans.
And, well, just so the ladies and gentlemen of the jury can understand, what's an ammo can?
It's a storage box for ammunition, usually made of steel. Sometimes they're plastic.
Steel, were they steel or plastic here?
They were steel.
Maybe one of each, or you're not sure, you don't know?
The one from what I remember, was steel.
Okay, all right. So, did you look at those with the x-ray?
Yes.
What'd you see?
I saw that one of them was empty and the other one appeared to have .223 ammunition.
Was it like chock full or just a little bit, or you not remember?
That I'm not sure of.
All right, so then you said you took some x-rays in the living room, is that right?
Yes, sir.
What'd you x-ray there?
The black 6-inch spheres, and then the equivalent to that, but just the half sphere.
All right, where were these half spheres?
They were up outside of the main area of the living room, up against the wall.
And when you say half sphere, you literally mean like one half of one of those spheres, right?
Yes, sir.
And were they like face up or face down?
Face down.
Okay, so did you x-ray any of those half spheres?
Yes, sir.
What'd you find?
Nothing.
Okay. Now, how about the spheres that were all put together? Did you x-ray any of those?
Yes, sir.
How many?
2.
What'd you find when you looked at the x-ray?
There was a smaller sphere inside, and then inside that smaller sphere appeared to be a powder line.
What's a powder line?
We referred to it as a powder line. It's you can see that there's a material inside of there, and it's leveled off just like gravity took care of it. But you can tell there's something dense in there.
And then inside the larger, so it's a smaller sphere, and you ever seen one of those like Russian dolls where the things go inside each other? Know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
Is it kind of like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the larger sphere then, with the little sphere inside, you said you saw something inside the little sphere on the x-ray. Do you see anything on the big sphere on the x-ray?
Just the smaller sphere.
Okay. And if there was like a, I don't know, liquid like gasoline or oil or something like that, would you have seen that in the x-ray?
Probably not. It just depends on how dense the liquid is.
And if the liquid had, let's say, leaked out by that point, would you see that on the x-ray?
No.
Can I have a second, Your Honor?
Yes.
Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, Ms. Spengler.
Questions?
The jury doesn't seem to have any questions for you, so may this witness be released from his subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection? No. All right, thank you, sir. Call your next witness, please.
Paul Capalongo, Your Honor.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm on penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Please be seated. Please tell us your full name and spell your first and last names.
Paul Capalongo, P-A-U-L. Last name is C-A-P-O-L-U-N-G-O.
Mr. Orman, you may proceed.
Thank you. Who do you work for?
I'm a police officer for the city and county of Denver.
What is your duty assignment?
I'm assigned to the bomb squad.
Is that a full-time job?
Yes.
Can you please just tell us what training you've had to make the bomb squad?
Basically, we interview for the job, and then if you're assigned to the unit, you will go down and train at Hazardous Devices School in Huntsville, Alabama. It's a 6-week training program. You go down there, you get your initial training, and then when you come back, basically you train weekly, and every 3 years you go back to Hazardous Devices School and get recertified as a bomb technician.
What do you do as the guy on the Denver bomb squad? It wouldn't seem to me there's like enough bombs in Denver to make that a full-time job. So what do you do as that job?
Well, basically, I'm a detective assigned to the unit. So we investigate not only improvised explosive devices, we also investigate improvised explosive devices. We also investigate bomb threats, whether they're verbal, written, telephonic. We also handle any suspicious unattended bag calls. We also handle and recover military ordnance.
Now, we've heard in this case from people with FBI, bomb squad, Arapahoe County, Adams County, and now Denver. Is that a close-knit community? Do you guys work together?
Yes, yes, we do.
And so if there's a bomb incident and Adams County responds, do they sometimes call you to say, hey, will you help us out?
Yeah, we have mutual aid agreements. The nice thing about our job is that we're all trained at the same place. So we're trained, all public safety bomb squad members are trained at the same school in Huntsville, Alabama. So we're trained exactly the same way. So I could come in and help Adams County, and we're all going to be on the same page on using equipment and procedures that are going to be used.
Did you get a call to assist Adams County Bomb Squad on July 20th, 2012?
Yes, I did.
And did you go to 1690 Paris Street?
Yes.
Who else was there when you arrived as far as bomb techs are concerned, or bomb squads?
Initially, it was just the Adams County Bomb Squad, and then myself and my boss. That was 5:30 in the morning.
Is that, at that point in time, do they already have the robot in the apartment?
Yes,
And were you able to see what was in the apartment on the robot?
correct. So when we got there, we met with some of the bomb squad members, and they were in their truck, and they pointed out that they had made entry into the apartment. And I shouldn't say, but basically the robot was pretty much halfway inside the threshold of the doorway. And basically they showed us, the other bomb squad members showed me from a camera that's on the robot, pan tilt camera, what was going on, what was occurring in the apartment, what they saw and what they had. Initially they showed me the,
I'm going to object to hearsay and confrontation at this point.
As to what the camera showed?
The others were showing this detective.
You cannot talk about what others said to you, but you can talk about what you saw on the video.
Okay.
So with that cautionary instruction, you may proceed.
so I saw on the pan tilt camera of the robot, I saw a tripwire, a filament line going across the hallway of the apartment, kind of at an upward, kind of high to a downward low angle. I also saw within the apartment on that camera, as it was being panned and tilted, I saw a bunch of black cylindrical, what we call plastic, they're black plastic shells, and they're actually mortar shells that are used in commercial fireworks.
Let me stop you there for a second. At this point in time, was it light out or was it dark out or was it like, dawn? What are we talking?
Let's see, about 5:30 in the morning, it was just starting to become light. It was still fairly dark when we initially showed up.
Now, would it be fair to say that you and the other bomb techs were sort of limited by the placement of that robot and the cameras in your ability to see that entire apartment?
Yes, the way the robot was sitting, we could not see the entire apartment.
Is it important for you and your fellow bomb techs to be able to see everything in a space where you suspect explosives are concerned?
Yes.
So did you also notice anything about wires going into the kitchen?
Yes.
All right, tell us about the wires going into the kitchen and if that concerns you.
So from those plastic black mortar shells, there was a fuse, a green fuse coming off of that shell. And then attached to that fuse was a yellow electrical line, later to be identified as an electric match. So then those black electrical lines, because there were so many of them in laying on the ground inside the living room, all these lines were a hodgepodge, a big jumble of wiring. But what had happened was all that wiring kind of went back to a big bunch of it, and it went up the wall, and the wall basically is a separation wall, because it wasn't a full complete wall. It was kind of a half wall, because on one side of the apartment was a small dinette kitchen, or small dining room area, and then kind of a half wall, and that all those wires went around the wall into what at the time I assumed would have been a kitchen.
And could you see where, from where the camera on the bomb robot was located, could you see into the kitchen?
No.
Now, did you and another bomb tech then make efforts to see what was in the kitchen?
Yes.
And was that combined with an effort to see what was in the other rooms?
Yes.
Was there, in addition to wanting to see what was in the other rooms, was there an additional purpose for you going up there? I'm talking about fumes at this point.
At the time, prior to breaking the windows,
Yeah.
because I was looking through everything out through a camera on the robot, I was way outside of the apartment. I smelled no fumes.
Okay, so I want to put you then, you talked about breaking the windows. Were you all able to see, like, in the windows without breaking them?
No. So what had happened is I went around the building to look, to get a visual on the outside of the building of how many windows there are to his apartment and things like that. And when I looked up from the ground, all the blinds were completely shut. So basically the blinds were going to hinder us from actually physically seeing inside the apartment.
Did you try to, like, get a camera on a pole or anything like that to see what was up there?
No, it was too tall. From the ground, you couldn't do that. Yeah.
How'd you get up there?
So we didn't borrow. We used a bucket truck from the Aurora Fire Department.
Who's we?
Well, initially it was just me.
Okay.
When I say we, I mean the bomb squad. This was the plan that was occurring.
So you're up in that cherry picker thingy?
Yes.
And how do you end up looking inside the apartment using the cherry picker?
So I went up in the bucket. I actually was up there. My first initial time that I went up there, I was actually up there with an Aurora police officer. I was with another member of the Aurora Police Department. The concern being that because of what we couldn't see, we did not know, number one.
Of this.
Overruled under 401 and 402.
We did not know, number one, if there were any other people inside the apartment initially. We did not know how many more explosive devices were in this apartment because we could only see into the living room. And you need to know, there's, and I hate to use the word, and maybe this is wrong, but you make an assumption that there's not only a living room, there's a kitchen, there's a bathroom, there's at least another bedroom in an apartment, so that so we need to look through all these rooms.
Now, just because people may be wondering, because you mentioned it, did you find any other people in there?
No.
Okay. So how many times did you go up that day on the 20th to look at the windows on the apartment using that bucket from the fire department?
I believe it was twice.
Okay, so the first time you said you were with an Aurora officer.
Yes.
What did you do that first time?
So the reason the Aurora officer was with me was for safety reasons. He was there as cover for me. So if I were to go up there and break out windows, if there was another suspect or someone in there that was going to do harm to me, I'm a little busy breaking out, and what we call breaking and raking, breaking out a window and raking the blinds out of the apartment. So he was there to cover me. So initially, that's why that officer was up there with me.
Now, is that the time you actually did the break-in and rake-in?
We did. Initially we did the break and rake on just the kitchen window.
Let's do that then. When you went up there to do the break and rake on the kitchen window, were you wearing any type of protective clothing?
I was wearing a tack vest and basically a tack helmet.
All right, what is a tack vest?
It's overglorified Kevlar. Like right now I'm wearing a bulletproof vest. Well, this one fits on the outside of your clothing and basically just kind of zips up. It's thicker. It offers more protection.
And what's a tack helmet?
It's basically a Kevlar helmet. It's
Like
made of Kevlar, and it's to protect me in case something were to go bad. We're there on basically explosive devices. If something were to go off, it may or may not save my life.
Is it like an Army helmet, or is it a special thing?
It kind of looks like an Army helmet, yes.
So What are you using as a tool then to break the windows and, as you say, rake out the blinds?
So it's a pole that's probably about 4 foot long, and basically it's kind of got a sharp point at one end, and then down where that point is, about midway down, there's also a hook on it. So the point is to break the window, and then the hook is you sweep around the frame of the window to break out all the glass and to grab the blinds and pull them out of the window.
Did you do that in the kitchen?
Yes.
What did you see?
So the reason we broke the kitchen window initially is, if you go back to my testimony, from what we saw, what I had seen on the robot platform, those bunches of yellow wires had to go somewhere. And we saw them go around into what we thought was the kitchen. So when I went up in the bucket truck and I broke the window and I raked out the blind, I could see on top of the refrigerator a black plastic box. This box was, I don't know, maybe about a foot by a foot wide, length and width. And on the top of the box were a bunch, that's where all the wires were going into that black box.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness with what I've marked for identification as 4863, 4864, and 4865?
Yes.
Take a look at those for me, sir, and tell me what they are.
These are, so also while I was up there, I had a digital camera with me. And these are the pictures after I performed the break and rake and I saw the black box. I basically took some digital pictures of that black box.
Are those accurate depictions of what you saw through the window?
Yes, they're accurate in the sense that they're pretty much zoomed in.
All right, well, are they accurate depictions of what you saw?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move to admit 48, 63, 64, and 65.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-4863, 4864, and 4865 are admitted and may be published.
Will you please put up 4863? Tell me what we're looking at there.
So that's the black box that I was telling you about. And as you can see on the front side of it, kind of pointing in a downward angle, there's an antenna on that box. So that concerned us because now we're talking about when there's an antenna on this, what turns out to be a firing box. That means that somewhere along the lines it can be...
Object, excuse me. May we approach?
Yes. objection is overruled.
You can continue with your answer.
I lost my train of thought, so
I-
let me see, okay.
I was asking you what this was, and you said you saw that antenna there, and that caused you concern. I think you were going to tell us how that affected what you were going to do next.
Yes, when you see an antenna on a box like this means that it can be fired remotely. It means a person doesn't have to be physically near that box and push some buttons. It means they could be away from it somewhere, and they might have a remote control with them and push the button, which will send a signal to that antenna, which in turn that antenna will tell that box to fire.
So did that affect the way that you proceeded after that?
Yeah, from that point right there, I came down off the truck and showed the members of the bomb squad what was going on, what I had up there.
Let's take a look at 4864. What are we looking at there?
Those are the wires. They're basically coming around the corner of the wall, up the front of the refrigerator, and going into that black box.
And if we could look at 4865. What are we looking at there?
I was attempting to get a picture of those, and it's hard to see, but those wires are actually connected into that black box.
Now, I'm looking at the bottom of that, and I see a black object attached to it that's sort of pointed down towards the bottom right. What is that?
That is the antenna.
All right, thank you. We can take that down. So you say you went, after you got this information and you took these photographs, you went down and you showed them to the other bomb guys, right?
Right.
Was it decided that you would somehow change what you were doing as far as this breaking and raking is concerned?
No, so once I came down and showed the other members, then there was a discussion as to how we were going to approach and how we're going to continue working on this. Because at that point, I never heard, or I never knew if the transmitter portion of that box was ever found. So I don't know. I don't know if it was or wasn't. So that took a little bit of time. So I believe it was about 2 hours later, about 8:30 in the morning, where the decision was made to go back up and still continue to break out those windows.
When you broke out the window in the kitchen, did you smell anything unusual?
Yes, initially when I broke that window out, I got a very strong odor of gasoline.
So did that have an impact on the way that you proceeded after that?
Yeah, yes it did. Basically, because now you got this real strong odor of gasoline emanating from this apartment, you got a lot of vapors in there. And about the only way to rid that apartment of the gas vapors is to air it out. And so the decision was made to break out all the windows in the defendant's apartment.
Did you use that same bucket truck?
Yes.
Same outfit with the vest and the helmet?
Yep, yes.
Did you go up alone this time or still with the other guy?
No, I was still with him because we were still trying to figure out, we still didn't know if there were other people in this apartment. So I still had the Aurora officer up there with me when I performed the break and rake on the rest of the windows.
So tell me about the break and rake, where you did and then what you saw when you looked inside.
Okay, so after the kitchen window, which would be in the southeast corner of the apartment and the apartment building, I moved down to the next window, which was the living room window. So it was a larger plate glass window. Same thing, got to the window, the blinds were shut. So I broke the window out, raked the blinds out. Still got a good whiff of gasoline. Kind of looked around. I got a better view of the entire living room area of the apartment. Because initially, from where the robot was sitting in the threshold of the doorway, you couldn't fully see the entire living room. So I could look in another corner of the living room that the robot couldn't see into. So we looked in there. I didn't see any human beings in that corner of that. I could see the spherical mortar shells laying around. There was a jar that was sitting on I believe it was a chair, and it was full of liquid and what appeared to be ammunition. So from there, I just continued on. I went to the next window, which would have been a bathroom window. It's a bathroom window, so it's tempered glass. It's kind of like frosted, so you can't see in. It's a privacy type window. I shattered that window. I looked in the bathroom, didn't see anybody in there. Didn't really see any sort of booby trap on the door or any explosive devices, improvised explosive devices in the bathroom. I continued in it would be a westerly direction to what was going to be a bedroom window. I did the same thing, performed the break and rake, pulled the blind out, looked around the bedroom, didn't see any human beings in the bedroom. I saw an ammo can sitting on the floor near the bed, and if from the window looking into the bedroom, it would have been on my right side of the bed. It was sitting on the floor. We were concerned about the ammo can. An ammo can become a container for an improvised explosive device. So at that point, that can became suspicious.
Sorry, so you broke out that one window, you saw the ammo can. Did you see anything else of interest to you in the bedroom at that time?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
Did you break out any other windows?
There was one more bedroom window, because the bedroom was in a corner. So the first window I broke out would have been southern facing, and the second window I broke out was western facing.
Now, did you see anything else in there when you broke out that window?
No.
I want to ask you about the next day now.
Okay?
Did you go back the next day on the 21st?
Yes, I did.
And were you part of the render safe procedure on that date?
Yes, I was.
Now, we've seen a video of the results of someone blowing up that thing on top of the refrigerator that you showed us. Were you involved in that?
Yes, I was.
And did you and another bomb tech blow that up?
We don't consider calling it blowing up.
Okay.
It's a render safe procedure.
If like anyone else in the world looked at it, would they think you blew that up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they would.
All right. So the reason for blowing it up, what is that?
So basically, the charge we used is it's a water charge. We basically use explosives to propel water at a very high rate of speed because water does not compress. So the whole point of that was to separate the wires that were connected to that box.
Did it work?
Yes, it did.
Can I have a moment, Your Honor?
You can.
Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Cross-examination, Ms. Spengler?
Yeah.
The jury may have some questions for you, so give us just a moment, please.
Okay.
Or maybe not. Okay, no, the jury does not have any questions. Okay. May this witness be released from his subpoena?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please. You can leave those with me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The people called David Williams.
Susan. Here you go. Thank you. Good afternoon. Could I have you raise your right hand so that I can administer a note? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please be seated. please tell us your full name for the record and spell your first and last names?
David Lee Williams, DavidWilliams.
And how do you spell your middle name?
Lee.
Ms. Tish McGuire, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Were you at the Century 16 movie theater on July 19th, 2012 in Aurora, Colorado?
Yes, I was.
Did that go into the early morning of July 20th, 2012?
Yes, it did.
What do you remember about the day of July 19th prior to going to the movie theater that day?
Prior to going, I remember my coworker / boss waking me up saying that he wanted to go to the movies, and I said no, I really didn't feel that idea was too cool, but he had ordered my tickets online.
Why didn't you think that going to the movies was too cool?
Well, I moved up here from Detroit, and back home going to theaters, usually just
Back to relevance at this point.
Sustained.
All right, so who is this coworker boss that you were talking about that invited you to the movies?
Chris Rivas.
How long had you known?
Chris Rivas.
All right, Ms. Tish McGuire, can you speak up? And sir, can you also speak up?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
How long had you known Mr. Rivas?
For about 2 years
And where did you work?
at Kaiser Permanente.
All right. So did you and Mr. Rivas end up going to the movie theater that night?
Yes, we did.
How'd you get to the movie theater that night?
At first, we was going to take a bus, but we decided to walk since he stayed only about a mile away from the theater.
Is that where you lived as well?
Yes.
Did you walk to the movie theater that night?
Yes, we did.
What time did you get to the movie theater that night?
About an hour before the movie had started. Hour and a half.
What did you do when you got to the movie theater?
Sat there, conversated with, other movie watchers, and just chilled and ate our popcorn, went to contest stand, just relaxed.
Do you recall any of the people who were sitting around you at the movie theater that night?
No. No.
Do you know if you were seated near any people that you
Yes.
remember? Yeah.
Yes.
Who were you seated near that you remember?
The young lady, her and her girlfriend was sitting next to us, to the left side of us.
Right. How'd you go about choosing your seats in the movie theater that night?
Well, when we first walked in, we didn't want to be too close or too far away from the theater screen.
All right, Your Honor, if I may approach the witness with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 1179.
Yes.
Mr. Williams, do you recognize this diagram?
Yes, I do.
What is that a diagram of?
Where me and Chris is seated ourselves in the theater.
All right, and did you make the notations on that diagram?
Yes, I did.
Do you believe that it fairly and accurately represents what you remember about the movie theater on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, very much.
Your Honor, at this time I would move for the admission of People's Exhibit 1179.
Any objection?
Objection.
Without objection, P-TR-1179 is admitted and may be published.
May I please have 1179? All right, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. Williams, if you could grab that stick that's right behind you, that wooden stick, and there's a microphone to your left. If you could turn on that microphone. All right, and I'm going to ask you to stand up if you could, please. All right, and could you use that pointer to show the jury where you were seated at the movie theater that night?
I was seated right here.
All right, okay. Thank you very much. You can take your seat. At some point in time, did your movie begin that night, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
What do you remember happening during your movie that night?
Well, watched the movie about maybe 15 minutes into the movie. From there, we saw someone step in through the rear exit door.
And could you see that person?
All we could see was a silhouette.
Do you remember anything about that silhouette in particular at all?
Well, if,
Silhouette at all?
that the first thought in my mind that it was just part of the movie, that, you know, it was someone dressed up as one of the main villains in the Batman movie. So
What do you recall after that door opening?
there was a lot of clapping, and then
And I'm going to ask you, what are you talking about clapping?
like a lot of people that was there watching the movie, you know, begin.
Back to 403.
Overruled.
You can answer the question.
A lot of people that was there watching the movie began clapping their hands, you know, excited. That I would think also would have thought it was part of the movie, that they went all out for the premiere.
So what happened next that you remember?
After that, I remember a canister had arisen towards the ceiling and arched towards me and Chris and landed behind us. It was like green smoke.
What do you remember after that canister landed behind you?
I remember like thinking to myself like it landed kind of close to us, and I began to smell like a gas that wasn't what I thought it was. I thought it was, you know, a prop, you know, like just for effects. But I was in the service, and when I started to gag, I realized like, nah, this is something else.
And what did you think it was?
I thought it was CS gas.
What is CS gas?
It's a gas they use to deorientate you.
So what do you recall after that happened?
After that happened, I recall a second canister arching to the right side of the theater, and then a loud gunshot into the ceiling.
What do you recall after that gunshot?
After that, I recall my left hand. Well, after that, I recall my left hand also fires from another sort of gun coming towards the crowd.
So had you stood up or were you in your seats? How were your hands positioned when that happened?
At that time, my hand positions were in the air because it was seconds after I had noticed that it was CS gas or some type of gas that deorientate us. And I turned around, I threw my hands in the air. I had my phone in my left hand, and I realized I couldn't feel my left hand. And it just was throbbing and felt like it was on fire, or it was just. So, and
What do you remember after your hand feeling like it was on fire? Could you still hear gunshots around you?
At that time, I was hearing gunshots and screams. I was no longer hearing claps and cheers.
What do you recall happening next after your hand got hit?
Darting to my left and just trying to flee.
So what were you thinking at that time?
I was thinking, I gotta get out of here, because all I was seeing was blazes from everywhere and screams and hollers.
Were you able to get out of the theater?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, with the court's permission, I would like to ask Mr. Williams to approach this model and show the jury where he was.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Williams, I'm going to ask you to grab that microphone again that you did such a good job with last time. And come meet me down here, please. All right, and if you could stand right over there for me. And if you could please first describe for the jury where you were seated that night.
I was seated right here.
All right, and where was Mr. Rivas seated?
He was sitting right here to my right.
All right, and where were those two girls seated that you were talking about?
To my left.
All right, and then could you describe for the jury where you saw that the person, the silhouette, the door open, very beginning?
About right here.
All right, and what about the canister that you saw fly across the theater?
It came from the left of the silhouette.
And where did it land?
It arched and it landed someone right here behind me and Chris.
Now, at any point in time, did you see flashes in the theater?
Yes,
Where'd you see those?
coming from over where the silhouette was.
And could you describe for the jury where you were when your hands got hit?
Still on my seat.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Thanks, Mr. Williams. So, and if you could just show again where you were when your hands got hit.
I was still sitting in my seat.
All right. And if you could describe for the jury how you were able to exit the theater.
I jumped over the railing or banister right here.
And where'd you land?
I landed on the ground.
And did you head then back towards the lobby of the theater?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. You can take your seat. You could just turn that microphone off for me. Thanks. After you went into the lobby of the theater, where'd you go after that?
I was headed towards the main lobby doors, exiting the theater, but as I was running out the theater, I just thought that maybe there was someone outside waiting, because the only thing that was going through my mind was like, this can't be happening by just one person by themselves. So plus being in the service, I'm thinking like, well, ain't nobody supposed to make it up out of here. So I'm thinking like maybe there was someone outside waiting for anybody else lucky to make it out. And I directed myself to the right. There was a little arcade room, and I jumped like by the side of two arcade games for a couple seconds.
Were you still able to hear any gunfire at that point in time when you were in
Yes.
the arcade?
Yes, a lot.
Now, during the time that you were in the theater, were you able to discern whether or not you thought you heard different weapons being used?
Yes.
What different weapons do you think you were able to discern?
Like 12 gauge, and
Your Honor. And cumulative.
Relevance and Stitch McGuire.
Your Honor, Mr. Williams testified that he was in the service. I can ask him some more foundational questions about his experience with weapons in the service.
That's okay. The objection is as to relevance and cumulative. So it's a Rule 401 and 402 objection in terms of relevance, and a Rule 403 objection in terms of cumulative. The objections are overruled. It is relevant based on what he's indicating he remembers happening, and the probative value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by any of the concerns in Rule 403, including the unnecessary presentation of evidence that is cumulative. You may proceed.
All right, Mr. Williams, you can continue with what weapons you think you were able to discern that you heard throughout the theater.
semi-automatic, shotguns, like loud bursts or rapid bursts or single shots.
And you were able to discern all of those different types
Yes.
of gunshots while you were in the theater?
Yes,
And what about when you were in the arcade? What sort of shots were you hearing?
the same.
What happened while you were hiding between these arcade games?
I'm sitting there thinking, and I start thinking back to when you watch movies, horror movies, and someone always gets caught up under the...
Your Honor, 403.
Sustained.
Right, so what do you do after you're in between these arcade games? What do you do next?
I finally come to a decision, like I want to go out, buy some arcade games. I might as well give them, if it's my time to go, I'm going to give it all I got. So I just ran out the theater through the front doors. Finally, after sitting there thinking for a couple seconds.
What happened after you ran out through the main doors?
I got outside, and I was running up the parking lot, and I finally stopped in the middle of the parking lot. I didn't see no one outside but myself.
At that point in time, were you able to look down and notice if you were injured at all?
I looked over to my left hand and just saw that it was bloody and shaking.
Were you able to seek medical attention
Once I was outside,
once you were outside?
after the ambulances came,
And were you able to take an ambulance ride to get some medical help?
yes.
Okay. What do you recall about that ambulance ride?
As we was,
Do you remember if there was anyone else in the ambulance with you?
yes,
Right? Who else was in the ambulance with you?
the young lady that was sitting to the left of me in the theater, and there was a black male that got shot in the back.
Could you tell the injuries for the girl that was sitting next to you in the theater?
Objection, 403.
Overruled.
Yes, injury was to her neck.
Could you actually physically observe that injury while you were in the ambulance?
Well, I physically saw that there was blood coming from her neck.
And how long do you think your ambulance ride took when you were on your way to the hospital?
It felt like forever.
Do you know what hospital you went to?
Yes,
What hospital?
university.
What happened when you got to University Hospital?
They seated me in a wheelchair, and first thing I asked was to use a phone.
Were they able to treat any injuries for you when you were at the hospital?
Yes,
Right. What did you find out about your injuries?
I had a gunshot wound to my middle finger.
And was anything else wrong with your finger?
Yes, there was metal still stuck in it, and the finger was broken. It was a clean break.
Your Honor, if I may approach Mr. Williams with what's been marked as People's Exhibit 2552 and 2551.
Yes.
I'm going to first direct your attention to People's Exhibit 2552. Do you recognize the person in that photograph?
Yes,
Who is that person?
myself.
Is that picture fairly and accurately depict your injuries on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, it is.
Right, then I'm going to direct your attention to People's Exhibit 2551. All right, is that a close-up of the injuries that you received to your hand on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, it is.
Did they fairly and accurately represent the injuries you sustained on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, they did.
Your Honor, at this time I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibits 2551 and 2552.
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-2551 and 2552 are admitted and may be published.
If I could please have 2552 first. Right, if you could tell the jury what this is a picture of.
Let's picture myself sitting in a wheelchair at the hospital.
If I could please have People's Exhibit 2551. And what is that a picture of?
A gunshot wound to my hand.
Is that on July 20th of 2012?
Yes, it is.
Now, do you have any continuing medical problems with your hand, Mr. Williams?
Yes.
What's that?
Nerve.
Objection, Your Honor. Excuse me, relevance.
Overruled goes to the extent of the injury. You can answer the question.
Yes, nerve damage to my left hand.
All right, thank you very much. I have no further questions for this witness.
Any cross-examination?
No.
The jury may have a question for you. Give us a moment, please. Counsel, please approach. All right, sir, the jury has submitted some questions, and I have found, based on the rules of evidence and other applicable rules of law, that a couple of these questions are appropriate. The first question is, did you see the gunman move through the theater? If so, where?
Yes, he was approaching up through the aisles.
The other question is, how many types of guns did you hear being fired while you were in the theater complex? And you can't speculate. So this is, whether you can answer it or not depends on your actual observations. How many types of guns did you hear being fired while you were in the theater complex?
2.
All right, any follow-up questions, Ms. Tish McGuire?
Yes, Your Honor. With the court's permission, I'd asked Mr. Williams to approach the diagram again and demonstrate for the jury where he saw the shooter approaching up the aisles.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Please bring the microphone with you.
All right, so you'd stand here. If you could show the jury the first time that you saw the silhouette of the shooter, where was the shooter?
Stand to the side, please, if you would. There you go.
If you could first demonstrate for the jury where you first saw the shooter enter the theater.
I first saw the shooter enter the theater back here,
All right, and then where was the next time that you saw the shooter?
right here.
All right, and the way the record reflect that the witnesses demonstrated maybe a few inches on this diagram in front of the previous location where the shooter was. And then, Mr. Williams, where next did you see the shooter?
It seemed as the shooter was coming around this way. But seeing how there was smoke from the gas canisters, I was actually seeing the blazes off the barrel of the gun.
So were you actually seeing the shooter approach, or were you more seeing the blazes?
The blazes.
All right, do you recall seeing the shooter at any other location in the theater?
No.
All right, thank you, Your Honor. No further question.
Ms. Spengler, do you have any follow-up questions?
No,
May this witness be released from his subpoena.
Please, thank you, Your Honor.
Any objection?
no objection.
Thank you, sir. Call your next witness, please. Good afternoon. Could I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer a note? Do you solemnly swear or affirm at a penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please be seated. Please tell us your full name and spell your first and last names.
My full name is Shane Heater. First name is S-H-A-N-E. Last name is H-E-I-T-E-R.
Mr. Orman,
Thank you. Who do you work for, sir?
The Adams County Sheriff's Office.
What's your job?
I'm
Apparently they can't hear you. Pull it closer.
I'm currently assigned to the Adams County Sheriff's
I
Office.
think you got to even go closer.
I'm currently assigned with the Adams County Sheriff's Office as a sergeant of the Detective Division, as well as a sergeant on the bomb squad.
What was your job back on July 20, 2012?
I was the sergeant of the crime laboratory and bomb squad.
You were at the crime laboratory, too.
Yes.
How long were you at the crime lab?
I was a detective for 6 years and then a sergeant for 4.
I want to go to July 20, 2012. Were you asked to respond to the apartment building located at 1690 Paris Street in Aurora, Colorado?
I was.
Now, does your bomb squad have a robot, and did you look through the robot's camera to see what was in the apartment?
I did.
And later on, did your observations through that camera become relevant to some actions that you took up at the doorway to the apartment?
They were.
All right, so Tell us what you saw through the camera that later became important to you as when you went up to that doorway.
What we saw when the door was opened was a monofilament fishing line, a line that was attached to the wall next to the door striker. So as the door opened, you look to the left, and there is a fishing line that's hooked to the striker plate, so around 36 inches up from the ground, that continued down to a thermos, a blue-colored thermos attached to the handle. The thermos was actually placed on some tennis shoes so as to facilitate it sitting up at a 30 to 40 degree angle. And right directly below the mouth of that, or the lip of the thermos, was a skillet, like a cooking skillet. And inside that skillet was a gray, powdery substance.
Did you do anything in the apartment other than looking through the camera? And I'm not talking about talking with your colleagues. Did you actually do anything in the apartment on the 20th, or was that only on the 21st?
That was on the 21st.
All right. Let's flash forward then to the next day, to the 21st. Did you assist with the rendering safe procedure in collecting materials from that apartment?
I did.
Now, we've heard testimony already about using the robot to take out the thermos and so forth. Did you observe that on the camera?
I did not.
All right. Where were you when that happened?
I was standing down outside the apartment complex on the west side.
You say standing down. Do you mean that you were just standing around, or were you waiting for something?
I was 3 floors down, standing outside, waiting. And as soon as I got word that the robot was in the process and had the thermos ready, I went upstairs to collect the thermos.
Now, what were you wearing when you went up to collect the thermos?
For that type of situation, I was wearing a flak jacket, a helmet with a visor, a face shield, and some gloves.
Did you actually go up and collect the thermos?
I did.
Where was it?
It was in the grippers of the robot.
Was there anything inside it?
There was a white opaque or an opaque type container with some sort of a liquid inside that container.
Did it have a label?
It must have. I didn't see the label because it was sitting inside the thermos.
Okay. Your Honor, if I may, I want to approach the witness with what I've marked for identification purposes as People's Exhibits 899 and 898.
Yes.
I got to wait till I get back to the microphone, so let me start that over again. Do you recognize those items?
I do.
What's 898?
$8.98 is the blue and white thermos.
And what's 899?
That appears to be the opaque bottle that was inside the thermos.
Your Honor, move to admit 888 and 899. I'm sorry, 898 and 899.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-898 and 899 are admitted.
Can you tell me what the label says on 899?
It says glycerin, and it says 99.7% technical grade.
So is that the stuff you buy at the drugstore?
No,
In fact, is there a company on that where it was purchased from?
there is.
What's it called?
The Science Company.
Is that the place like up on Lincoln as you're driving downtown from the south?
I believe it is.
Your Honor, well, actually, before I approach, the frying pan, did you get that?
I did.
How'd that work?
The robot collected the frying pan, then handed the frying pan over to me.
Did you actually watch it do that?
I did. I was still up there when I collected the thermos, yes.
Oh, why don't you tell us how that worked? Please.
So basically, when I got called up there, the robot had the blue thermos in its gripper and was somewhat entangled in the monofilament fishing line. After I recovered the blue thermos, handed it off, I then collected, the robot went back in, got the skillet. I backed far enough away to where I felt like I was safe if something were to happen. As soon as I saw the robot back out of the apartment, I went up and grabbed the skillet.
May I approach the witness with what I've marked for identification as People's Exhibit 900, Your Honor?
Yes.
I've handed you what's been marked for identification as People's Exhibit 900. Do you recognize that?
I do.
What is that?
This appears to be the skillet that contained the gray powder.
I know you police are trained to say appears to be. Is it in fact the skillet?
Yes.
Okay. I move to admit 900.
Any objection? Without objection, P-TR-900 is admitted.
Your Honor, request to publish those three the old-fashioned way.
All right, Ms. Gerlings and Ms. Zago, would you please do that? Thank you. You want to provide some gloves again in case anybody wants to wear them, please?
I don't know that that's necessary. I think they're all, well, maybe one of them might be peeking out a little bit. That's a good idea, Your Honor.
All right, hold on, Ms. Zago. Okay, the record should reflect that exhibits P-TR-898, 899, and 900 were just published to the jury. Mr. Orman?
Thank you. Sergeant, in addition to collecting the physical evidence that the jury just had an opportunity to handle, did you take any photographs of the apartment?
I did.
Now, before we get to the photographs you took, I want to talk to you about crime scene photography. Do you have any training in doing that? I think you said you were in charge of the crime lab, so it makes me think you might have.
That's correct. I worked as a detective criminalist for 6 years and then became the sergeant of that same lab. 6 years I was a detective criminalist and then 4 years as a sergeant. And we're trained to, for photography purposes, what's called overall, mid-range, and close-up. You take an overall general picture, then you take a mid-range picture, and then you take the close-up picture of the item.
So why would you want to do an overall, a mid-range, and a close-up? What does that help someone looking at the photograph to discern?
What we're trying to do in pictures for those people that can't be there is to show the state of the evidence as it was at the time that I entered. And then when you find a particular piece of evidence, we then work our way in to better show that evidence.
Is there also something that you do, in other words, so the person can sort of see it in context and then see it close up?
That is correct.
And is there something else that you do? So, I mean, you would think maybe you go into a crime scene, you want to be able to take a picture of every nook and cranny there, right? Is there anything you do that so that people looking at the pictures can see everything in a place that you're looking at?
To the best of our ability, when we approach a crime scene, we start at the threshold, and then we take a panoramic view. So we take shots, rotate a little bit so that our previous shot and our next shot overlap, and then continue pivoting. We go to the corners of each room, if possible, and do that same thing. We go to the opposite corner and shoot those same pictures. So we end up shooting hundreds of pictures on a scene, but that way you can see every angle. So questions that weren't asked at the time could be answered later.
Now, you say you take hundreds of pictures, but does each one of them show something different?
They do,
How is that possible?
due to the different angles, the different lighting conditions.
In your experience as a former person in charge of the crime lab, I mean, were you in charge of it, or am I just giving you a false title?
I was the sergeant in charge of the crime lab,
Okay.
yes.
Is that important for being able to see and get an idea of everything that was in a room?
That's correct.
And did you train your people to do that too?
Overruled?
My people as in the bomb squad people or the crime lab people?
Good question. The crime lab people.
That's correct.
Now, is there anybody else on the bomb squad that had the kind of forensic experience that you had in taking pictures?
Commander Kelly, or Chief Kelly now, he was my sergeant back in the day years before, so he had that training as well.
Well, they're not going to send a commander down there to do this, are they?
No,
Okay. So, were you tasked with taking some pictures?
I was.
How many sets of pictures did you take?
As in the number of pictures?
Well, we're going to get to that, I'm sure. No, how many different groups of pictures did you take?
A first grouping I shot as I was up there with the robot, collecting the evidence from the robot, the thermos, the skillet. I stayed up there in the doorway, in the threshold, and shot additional pictures the best we could without entering the scene, because we still didn't know if there were further booby traps inside. So I took numerous photographs at different angles, at different heights, and at different exposure levels to see if we could see anything else that might endanger human life before we entered it.
Your Honor, I'm going to approach the witness with a group of photographs I've shown to counsel, which is 4133 through 4164. However, it does not include a number of photographs that have already been admitted, specifically 4138, 4144, 4145, 4146, 4148, 4162, and that's it. So if I may approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
You familiar with those photographs?
I am.
In fact, did I show them to you earlier today?
You did.
Why don't you take another quick look through them?
I'm done.
Do those fairly and accurately represent what you saw in the hallway and then in the door looking into the apartment?
They do.
And is that representative of this technique that you use to take photographs of everything so the observer has the opportunity to see every nook and cranny and every possible angle so they don't miss anything?
In respect to before I physically entered the apartment, yes.
Okay. Well, we're going to get to the ones after you physically entered later. These are all before, right?
That is correct.
Your Honor, move to admit those exhibits.
Any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, I do object to several.
Okay, which ones are you objecting to?
4142 as cumulative of 4140. Judge, can we approach, or would you like me to?
Just, you can tell me from there.
4137 is cumulative of 4140. 4151.
I'm sorry, start again.
4140. 4151 has cumulative of 4150. 4165 is cumulative of 4155. And
I think that only goes through 4164.
4156 as cumulative of 4155. And 4159 as cumulative of 4158.
Okay, thank you. Can I see those photographs, please? idea, objections are overruled under Rule 403. Here you go, sir.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes, so, for the record, P-TR-4133, 4134, 4135, 4136, 4137, 4139, 4140, 4141, 4142, 4143, 4147, 4149, 4150, 4151, 4152, 4153, 4154, 4155, 4156, 4157, 4158, 4159, 4160, 4161, 4163, and 4164 are admitted and may be published. Mr. Orman, are you intending to publish all of these?
No, Your Honor, by no means.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. If we could show 4133 first. What are we looking at there?
That is the west entrance up the stairs, and we're looking at the robot, and to your right is the suspect apartment.
Now, previously in this case, someone else testified about taking the tires off the robot, and I see sort of over on the right there some tire-like looking things. What are those?
Those are the tires for the robot. We pulled the tires off to facilitate making the robot thinner for more maneuverability within tight spaces. More maneuverable, thinner.
Let's take a look at 4134. What's that?
That is the robot arm along with the doorway or threshold leading into that apartment.
And then 4135.
And that is beginning to approach the apartment doorway and photographing inside.
And then 4153. All right. In this picture, you can see these green fuse-like things attached to those sort of orangish kind of yellow wire thingies going onto that bicycle. Where do they go from there?
If you follow the green to orange and you follow the orange wires on up, you'll see that they go back beyond that wall and they end up going onto the top of a refrigerator.
Now, these pictures with the half shells on top of those jars and all this stuff, was this taken before or after the thing on top of the refrigerator was blown up?
This was taken before.
How about before or after you took down that thermos and that frying pan?
This was after the thermos and frying pan.
Okay. Did you take another series of pictures after they blew that thing up on top of the refrigerator?
I did.
When was that?
It was sometime in the afternoon, around 1 or 2 o'clock, I believe.
Before you get to the next group of pictures, Mr. Orman, why don't we take our afternoon break at this time? Folks, let's go ahead and take our afternoon break. It's 3:07. Let's take 20 minutes. Please remember that all my advisements apply during this break. I'll see you back here in 20 minutes. Thank you. The record should reflect that the jury has left the courtroom now. Everyone may be seated. Sir, you can go on break.
I'm good right here.
All right. Is there anything we need to talk about before we go on break?
Just to inform the court, the next group of pictures is much larger. I showed it yesterday to counsel. I've given it to them again. I don't know if Your Honor wants to take a look at it over the break or something, so at least you're familiar with the pictures to save time. I'm just suggesting that.
Are you gonna be objecting to some of those photographs, Ms. Spengler?
Review them.
All right, well, I'll let her do that. I'll try to come out in 15 minutes. Let's, Council and I just take 15 minutes and then we'll see if we can deal with those photographs. The objections to photographs P-DR-4137, 4142, 4151, 4156, and 4159 were overruled because they're not cumulative. They are different angles. Some of them are close-ups, some of them are from farther away. They show different things. Some of them show some things better than the others. And so even though they may be depicting some of the same things and there may be some overlap, they are not identical. And there are certain things, for example, certain wires sometimes that you can see better in one picture than in another picture. And I find that the probative value of the evidence is not substantially outweighed by the unnecessary presentation of cumulative evidence. So under Rule 403, I found that all of them were admissible and the objections were overruled. I just wanted to supplement the record now that the jury's out of the courtroom. All right, I'll see you back here in 15. Thank you. The court will be in recess.